Let's talk about our event next week before we go, like when we're on live as well.
We are live. We're now live. Yep.
Oh, good.
Good.
So I just said let's talk about our event next week before we go live. Because how are you, Brother Bear? By the way.
Yeah, I'm great, mate. I'm great. I'm just logging on the phone.
Yeah. Me too. Getting a bit distracted because it's distracting to try and find our live recording. Hello, Facebook. Hello, everybody. Hope you are well. We are about to record a double episode as a continued review of the Netflix series, which everyone is coming to Damo and I saying how good is that series, which we agree. We have recorded a couple of review episodes and we're about to record another couple.
Yep.
So we're going to do that with you all in a minute. We're also very excited that in the flesh next week, Damo and I are going to be at the Sandy Pub, the Sandringham Hotel, which I have a feeling, Damo, is where I met Sarah's family.
Oh, seriously?
The very first time. Yeah. I'll have to ask them, but I think it was. I cannot find us being live.
Oh.
We're definitely live?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, Wendy's there. Helen was there for a sec, and then she's gone. But Wendy's there. Yep.
Facebook will not tell me that 100 Not Out is live.
Definitely live.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Got it. All right, cool. Well, can I be really cheeky and just go and put a tea bag in this teapot and then come back in like 30 seconds? Can you entertain the crowd just for 30 seconds?
It's unbelievable. All right, yeah.
Thanks. Oh, you can fill a spot. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Go figure. Anyway, hi everybody. G'day Wendy and Pina. G'day Pina. What did you think of the first part that was released on Monday, our little chat? I think, Wendy, you joined us for the live version of it. And I'd love to know how you felt about it. Anybody else that's out there that saw it or heard it, it'd be great to know what you thought of it. I've had some great feedback from a couple of people this week. In fact, one of my golf mates mentioned it, which is really good. So we'll talk more. We'll go deep into it too. So Pina thought it was good, which is great. Thanks, Pina. I always prefer great, but good's good.
Good. I thought it was good. I like a bit of a tough review.
Yeah, me too.
I like a tough review.
That's like that's a 6 or 7 out of 10, I reckon.
I've always wondered, how do critics give their lowest scores? Like, it's not just like they've watched it; they've really critiqued it.
Well, that's good.
Or give us your best. Oh, very, very good. Pina, give us a number out of 10. Give us a rating.
Yeah.
What does it get as a rating out of 10?
Yeah. We'll get that. It'll come through.
I might get your number when we record, Damo. I'm going to get your number. All right. Well, I'm ready to go if you are.
Yeah. You definitely can't hear that lawnmower.
Definitely can't hear that lawnmower.
Okay, 10 out of 10.
Can you hear my tea steeping?
No, I can't.
All right. 10 out of 10. Oh, so very, very good for Pina.
It's 10 out of 10.
Actually means like perfection. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Love it. All right. Ready to rock, brother?
Just centering my camera. I don't know why it's like that.
Oh, Wendy Adams, before I forget, I'm coming to Adelaide in a couple of weeks and I keep on meaning to send you a message. So, Wendy, we have to talk. I love our Facebook Lives, don't I? This is so good. Forget what this is like.
Yeah, it's immediate feedback, isn't it? I love that. It's a nice little rub on the belly.
Yeah, rub of the belly. All righty, here we go. In 3, 2, and 1. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you for episode 4,333,255 with Australia's number one wellness expert. He is the Greek god, the Icarian legend himself, as we preview or review the Blue Zone's Secrets of Living to 100. Dr. Damien Christoph, how are you, great man?
I'm great, thank you, Piercy. And let me tell you, it's been great, the buzz that this little documentary has created. Seeing Thea up and about, she was displaying a new DVDs the other day that she received. DVDs, I thought, what is that little round thing that she's got there? What is that thing that she's been sent from Netflix? It's from the vault. It's a little thing called a DVD. I don't think it's a Blu-ray. I think it's a DVD. So Well done. That's how far, and they will still have the technology on Ikaria to play a DVD. I'm looking around. I haven't got a DVD player anywhere in the house anymore, so I don't know how I'd do it.
Hey, I've got two things to tell you about that.
Darby.
They actually sent Thea a VHS videotape ×4, but she thought she would show how innovative she was and how much ahead of the time she was, and she burnt it onto a DVD.
Is that true?
She could show us that she's up with the times.
Is that true?
No, that's not true. That's just me putting a bit of mayo on it. But I also reckon that Thea probably said, I'm sorry, guys, the Wi-Fi here does not work. Can you send it to me?
Can you send me a hard copy? Can you print it on paper for me?
A hard copy? That's so funny. Because as we tell people who are joining us in Ikaria, and if you're going to be one of them, we're off there August 22 to 31 in 2024. All the details at 100nightout.com. When people are applying to come to Ikaria, we are the first ones to say, now look, hope you're not running a business whilst you're over there or expecting to be paying wages, because you're not going to get the strongest Wi-Fi. And as you said, Damo, the poor people of Ikaria, no coconut trees, not much Wi-Fi. How do they survive?
How do they survive? It takes a long time to upload a story, put it that way, on the Instagram. Yeah. Very long time. Sometimes it doesn't even work. But anyway, tech aside, hasn't it been exciting? And isn't it unbelievable how many people are watching this? And if you're not watching it yet, or you haven't watched it, or you're still part way through it, push on through. It shouldn't be difficult to push on through. It's a really well put together program. And there's little bits and pieces in there that got my goat, which I would like to talk about, PC. And, I think we need to drill down on it, because I think that's this is a big part of the problem of why the generations after us as a generation will struggle to make it to 100. And so I'd like to just have a look at that, have a little bit of a chat about it. But it is a really great thing that longevity's been put on the map properly. And I know that when Dan first wrote his book, people started to talk about it. You and I were already doing our thing, and there was just such great excitement about it in the early days of well-being and wellness. Then it's sort of kind of become a bit medicalized, people trying to biohack their way through life to get to an end point. I don't know about you, mate, but I took a B vitamin this morning, and the smell of the B vitamin make me want to puke. And so I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, imagine I had to take 54 different bloody tablets so that I could live to 100. I tell you what, I'd tap out at 75 right now if I've got to take all those tablets just to get there. So I'm trying to find a lifestyle way of actually making it there, getting there through lifestyle as opposed to getting there through biohacking it.
Well, there is so much. So you've tabled a bit of a next-gen conversation. I do think your point that you've raised is really important for a lot of people, and this is around the newness of this. This is not a new conversation. The Blue Zones book, and again, we gave all credit to Dan Buettner and his team of researchers at National Geographic and the rest. The book came out in 2008. So let's be really clear about this, folks. If you're watching this you're watching this Netflix series for the first time, it's not new information. It's just been done in an audio-visual way that is compelling. I think on top of the fact that we could hardly travel for a couple of years, just being able to see these often remote places is a really compelling, visual engagement practice, if you know what I mean, because we've all been watching either sport with empty stadiums or rom-com series that are all very how do you do? This is so novel and unique, which I know is a part of what people love about the trips that you and I do, Damo. We call it like a holiday with meaning and deep and meaningful, and purpose.
Yes.
It's not just lying by a pool in Bali, even though that can be great as well. There's a novelty factor, and there is no doubt that there's a novelty factor to longevity, because for a lot of people, their longevity is disgusting. It is. Not just 55 pills and potions, it's 18 medications, it's all types of appointments, it's a social life being made in a waiting room. And, as you mentioned, and we'll talk about the next generation, but I think we probably both agree quantity of life's probably not going to be the problem. It's the quality of that quantity of life that is something that we really need to be mindful of. So let's go to Ikaria. Let's go to episode 3 of Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones. Of course, we have a soft spot for this episode because
don't we?
For us, we took our first trip to Ikaria in 2016. It was with sweet relief, Damo, that I saw Thea featured. We saw Ilya make a cameo. That's Thea's husband.
Yeah.
We saw Ilya's auntie Vaso almost take the limelight.
Oh, didn't she?
Who we actually spent time with on her patio interviewing her, and she was featured on an episode of 100 Not Out maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. It's around, Vaso lives alone, but she's not lonely. We also saw Costas and family up at the Affiani's winery, which was awesome. But what were your impressions when you watched episode 3? If we break it into 2, Ikaria and Costa Rica, what were your impressions, Damo, when you watched this vision and conversation around the way of life in Ikaria?
Yeah, well, immediately I was a bit emotional actually to see it all there and to see, all of our people hanging out with Dan. That was pretty cool. And I'm claiming him, Dan. I don't mind if you were there first. We got there second, and we spent a lot more time with him.
Even though if Dan's son got married at Thea's Inn and all the rest of it.
Doesn't matter, Dan. Yeah. It was really great. It was really great to see all of that. And it was great to have Thea on there continuing our message. Like I felt that, she was able to continue the message, but also to have Vaso there and to talk about wine being her favourite flavour of coffee, which I loved. I thought that was so fitting, so great. But also then using different peas and beans, to get their flavours. And it gave you a real sense of not a whole lot's changed in Ikaria, and not a whole lot appears to be changing. Yes, maybe there's some development. We know that there is. We've seen some improvements in infrastructure, all of that sort of thing. But the discussion around the longevity of the people in Ikaria was as pure in this episode as what it felt like it was when we were first learning about it, and then when we first went there, which I really liked. And we weren't trying to find the nutritional. They weren't trying to reveal the nutritional secrets. What was the magic bullet in the nutrition of the Icarians? They were looking at the other components of longevity, and it was really probably about this point in the whole series that I realized that this whole series that Netflix has put together with Dan is going to be more comprehensive in the discussion of longevity, which is in line with 100 Not Out, about the lifestyle of longevity as opposed to the nutrition of longevity, which is what we've been craving for such a long time. So it satisfied my cravings.
Yeah, I love the focus, which we often say to people when they're planning to come to Ikaria. There is no flat land in Ikaria. So you must have physical vitality in order to be there, or else it literally will spit you out. So I love that there was the focus on that. And I do think, we're often saying like centenarians love coffee, wine and chocolate. I was actually quite, again, relieved that Dan and the producers were happy to go there. Like to actually say, what's your favourite herbal tea or whatever it was that came up, and Vaso says red wine. I'm like, oh, because I feel like alcohol has almost become one of those PC, almost like don't talk about it. It's either you're a drunk or you're a teetotaler.
Yes.
And you can't be one of those people that can just have one or two and stop there.
Yep.
I know there are people that genuinely struggle to stop at one or two drinks, and then I know there are people that just don't drink, and I love everyone wherever they're at.
Yes.
But I think being okay to actually project this vision of elderly people loving a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And I love that he went to the grave of Stamatis Moriatis.
How good is
that story.
Yeah.
Because also I feel like...
Because that wasn't his story. That wasn't his story, was it? Like that wasn't one...
Oh, yeah, sorry, go on.
That wasn't his story originally, was it? Like that was another story that we saw that on Channel 7, I think, didn't we?
Oh, no, that's definitely a Dan Buettner story. He leads the chapter in Ikaria with that story. Sorry, he leads the book with that story. But I think again, to put my journalist hat on, we call it newsjacking. When we find a story, we then go and hijack it. So I know the BBC went out there to his property and other properties, so they hijack. It's a good thing to do. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But no, Dan definitely gets to own it. But what I loved is that, again, it's almost a bit of a COVID hangover in that if you did something not purely medical, you were seen to be, I don't want to say conspiracy theorist, maybe we called it an anti-vaxxer in the COVID times, but I love that Dan was happy to go there to the place where Stamatis Moriatis essentially shunned the oncologist. He was like, okay, I know you're telling me like you're just giving up on my life, but I'm going to go to Ikaria, quote unquote, to die.
Yeah.
And he never died. And he didn't take
eventually.
45 years later. That's right. He did eventually. That's not a bad gag by you. It's almost like, so he didn't go down the full-on medical path and he actually thrived. It's like, so we're allowed to tell that story. Like, that's okay. And we can even make it inspiring.
Yeah.
And I just think it gives people permission to go, okay, like every health professional from any walk of life, whether you're TCM, naturopath, chiro, physio, acupuncturist, medical doctor, neurosurgeon, cardiologist, whatever. Yep. You're always going to give the best recommendations in the context of the field that you play in.
Absolutely.
But the way that the story unfolded in that Stamatis did his own thing, it's like Dr. You, we talk about in chiropractic, like you and your body are the greatest doctor. I just loved that he had the courage to share that story, because I almost feel like if that story or that series came out in the height of COVID and vaccination statistics around who isn't vaccinated, to kind of have a story of someone that didn't take the oncologist's advice.
Yeah.
And it just would have been poo-pooed. I perceive it would have been absolutely shot down. So I love that, with Ikaria, because they are renowned as being a fiercely independent community and population. They are the ones that like, I'm not going to the doctor for a cold. Just give me a glass of red wine or a rosemary tea and I'll be fine, or some honey.
Yeah, heather honey. Yeah.
Heather honey.
Yeah.
They are that typical, just they don't go to the doctor that often type thing. And I kind of love that they had the courage to go there.
Yeah, me too. It was very real, and it seemed, clearly it's edited and all put together, but it just felt real, like it was a real conversation, real dialogue, and a real expose on the strength of the Icarian lifestyle. And I think, I just want to go back a little bit. You said something earlier, which I think was poignant, was around the tablets and all that sort of stuff. Off the back of a news article just the other day, it might have been in The Age or something, and it said the foods that cause cancer, or the foods that are linked to cancer, and one of the foods in there was red meat, and another food was processed meat, and then another food was alcohol. And so I've been doing a chat on the radio, like this, and so on 2AY the other day and 3NV, I think it might be, Northern Victoria, I think that's what that stands for, something like that. I was on there and they asked me, do these foods cause cancer? Anyway, the conversation came up today on the golf course. I was playing golf today, and the conversation came up on the golf course. Does red meat cause cancer? What do the people who live in the blue zones, do they eat red meat? And of course I said yes. Like the blue zones that we've been to, they eat red meat. In Sardinia, they're eating horse, they eat pig, they eat lamb, they eat sheep, they eat the whole lot, no problems. In Ikaria, do they eat red meat? Yep, they have goat, they have a sheep, they probably don't eat beef, but they will,
because it's too rocky.
It's too rocky.
Too rocky for cows to even thrive there. It's why they go. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, there's no horses or donkeys. I think they must have eaten all of them. They've already got rid of them. So maybe. Here's the point. And my thing, Piercy, was that these foods, you can't just say that these foods cause cancer. And then if you look at the statistics that we've got, that you continue to bring up, that I always forget, around cancer in the blue zones, like the lesser amount of cancer that they have in these areas, they all are consuming alcohol, except maybe probably the Loma Lindens, And so, from a longevity statistics perspective, the 4 other blue zones consume alcohol of some form, and they're not dying of cancer at a rate that's greater than anywhere else in the rest of the world. So we've got to kind of say, that's a furphy. That's not true.
Well, this is So for people wondering, in Ikaria, it's 80% less dementia, 50% less cancer, 20% less heart disease, and I just cannot, as we keep on saying, Damo, find us a vegan teetotaler who's 100 and has been, vegan since they were born, and we would love to interview them. We cannot find, to this point in time, one human being alive who has been a vegan since birth that hasn't had a drop of alcohol and is 100 years of age. And we're not saying that to be judgmental. No, quite the opposite. We are insanely curious. Yep. We would love to know if such a human being on this planet exists.
Yeah.
But whilst we cannot find one, it's so important to recognise that when we see this type of research, you just have to shake your head and go, what's
research? It was just an opinion piece. It drove me crazy.
Right. I thought you were saying...
Well, it was. I mean, it was research, but, you can find reseach on, where...
On any outcome.
Where does a cat prefer to do a poo? You can find research on that. It's ridiculous. So, you got to work out what it is that you're wanting to report. So what was really interesting then in the conversation was, well, what do you need to be doing to decrease the risk of cancer if you're eating red meat? And I said, Piercy, believe it or not, I said it's about the speed at which the food gets in and then gets out. So you got to eat the food and it's got to be in and out in under 24 hours-ish, something like that, 12 to 24 hours. And it's not because the food's bad for you. It's just whether or not it stays in you for too long. That's the problem.
Totally.
Stuff happens, right? So you got to get stuff out. And then I had to explain to DJ. I had to say, DJ, some people don't poo every single day. Some people poo every 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. And I know some people that don't poo for 7 days. So
are you serious?
Imagine how full of bib they are. They are so full of it. That's 21 meals stuck inside their guts. So
are you serious? You're not lying. 7 days, no poo.
No poo. Not even a little pebble. Not even a little plop. The one that splashes and makes water on your. I
can't believe that.
Some people are that's how bound up they are. Now, whether that's sitting down for too long or being too stressed, not enough movement, not enough fiber, whatever it is. Maybe it's just they've got a tardy bowel, whatever. There's some people that are out there that have that as an issue. So what we know is that if your bowels are moving every day, every 12 to 24 hours, you've got a healthier gut generally. So I think, keep that in mind. And so I think the fears that are perpetuated by media and shock jocks and all that sort of stuff probably ignore the other confounding factors, such as what are they having with the red meat? Are they having salad and vegetables? Are they having quality fibers? Or are they having chips that are cooked in canola oil and white bread slathered in butter? And they're having processed meat and it's not a beautiful grass-fed piece of steak, something like that. They're not looking at all of those factors. It's just there's a shocking line from a study that came out, and then they go and report on it, and it makes people fearful. So I think keeping it clean is most important.
This is disgusting. I'm sick of it. I'm just going to also consider. I mean, everyone that's listening, they're already converted. Now, Damo, I'm writing down notes. This is going to annoy people that are listening, but I have to tell you this because we're talking in Melbourne as we record next Wednesday, the 20th of September. Apologies, listeners, because this will be coming out after then. Yes. But you have to talk about this next week, Damo, because this will blow people's minds. The other thing to consider around this is there's no use eating a piece of horse, a piece of beef, a piece of lamb, I feel it or whatever, and not chewing the food. And then it, as you're saying, Damo, the body has to work so hard to actually get it out. So it's not just what we're eating, but how we're eating. And on previous episodes, we've spoken about if we're not moving our bodies and we're sedentary and we're eating a great meal, but we're sitting down all day, then it's really hard for the tardy bowel to become untardy. And then if we're stressing and we're stressed out and everything about our lives is stress, then and we're holding onto things, and it's really hard to let go of things. Yes. And people wonder why they can't go when they feel like they need to go. It's often they're just so stressed. So this is stressing me out, this conversation. This is actually happening.
Can we just trip back to Ikaria for a second? Let's go back to Ikaria.
Yeah, can we go there? Because they don't stress there. So can we just go there right now, please?
Let's go to Ikaria. I love the discussion around the dancing, the panegyri. I thought that was fantastic.
Even though they weren't at a panegyri.
They weren't. They were just
But
like
TV producer hat. Sorry to dominate the microphone here. Was like,
missed
guys,
opportunity.
Look at the calendar. They didn't play any File Vision. Like
missed opportunity. That wasn't a panegyri. That was someone's backyard playing like a kazoo. What I don't even. It's just it wasn't right. It wasn't right. They missed that opportunity. But I love that they referenced the dancing and everybody staying together like that. I loved that. That was really important. I loved again that conversation around family. I really loved. I suppose I loved the conversation that Costa had in the manufacture of the wine, because then he spoke about the minerals coming from the earth into the plant because of the types of minerals. They don't have any calcium in the dirt there. There's no calcium in the land, and so what they believe has happened, and what they're trying to prove at the moment, is that the potassium, which is very, very rich in the soil in Ikaria, it's the potassium that's helped the plants build a framework for survival. Because if you were to get a sample of that soil and try to grow something in it in a different environment, it's unlikely to grow because there's zero calcium, and you would think plants require calcium. Well, these plants over millennia have adapted. Given other types of conditions, maybe it's the rain, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the other parts of the climate, but these plants, particularly the grapevines, have adapted to produce the most beautiful grapes and to grow in an arid environment that enables them to have a multivitamin, multi-mineral glass of wine, which was really super cool. I loved when Costa was talking about how that's made in the what did he call it? One of those things in the ground?
The amphora.
The amphora. Yep. And then he uses the pumpkin. They didn't explain that was a pumpkin. We will explain that to you when you come to Ikaria with us. That's a pumpkin that he sucked up the wine with, and it's a great tool that they still use, and they've been using it for millennia. Unbelievable. So many great things. Oh, gets me so excited.
I know. We have run out of time. You still need to talk about next gen. We're going to talk about Costa Rica in an episode all by itself.
Yes.
And this is going to sound so salesy, and it's not meant to, but here's just what I have to say. Every single person that you saw in Ikaria is exactly who we hang out with when we go to Ikaria.
Yeah.
So people often go, do I go by myself? Do I go, with you guys? People are so welcome. We encourage people to go by themselves and to do their thing. All I say is, if you want the experience and you want even just a portion of what you saw on the Netflix series Live to 100, then I highly recommend you consider coming with us. If it's not in 2024, it could be in 2077 when Damo and I you'll be 100 and I'll be 96 or whatever it is. But the point is, there is something very special about doing this as a group, because we come back from Ikaria, and I saw Jenny Andrews is here on our Facebook Live, and she went nuts, like in the best way. She transformed her life when she came back from Ikaria, as a number of people do. But here's the thing. You've got like a community to converse about the shifts and changes that are very deep and meaningful, and almost they go against the grain of a lot of things in Australian culture. So it's very important to have that group of people around you that understand the processes. Like I said recently, Hillary King Sullivan walking 7Ks to work each morning.
Yeah.
We're like, what are you doing? Don't you have a car? So I just think that's something to be very mindful of. For people that are considering that, just go to 100notout.com. You'll see the dates. You'll see the info. You'll see the panegyris for real. You'll see what it's all about. Damo, we're going to talk big things. I know the bee is in your bonnet. We're going to have a big chat on the next episode of 100 Not Out. Thanks again for your wisdom as always, great man. And I know this isn't right, but I look forward to seeing you next week in Melbourne. For everyone listening, we've already done it, but can't wait to see you, brother.
Same, mate. Can't wait.
Thanks for joining us, listeners, viewers. Until next week, as always, continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Bye for now.
All right, Facebook, don't go anywhere. We'll do another one.
I'll start a whole new live. I'll start a new live.
Oh no! Don't do a start a new live, because then they'll go and then they'll go.
All right,
try and find us again. And
all right, let me just change this then to part 4 now, because the ticker It says part 3. And it's not part 3 anymore, it's part 4. All right,
Okay, I love it. I won't record until you're ready then.
I'm ready to go. Ready to go.
We're ready to go, are we?
Yeah.
All right, cool. In 3, 2, and 1. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you, and every week I bring you a new guest on this podcast, and today it is the Costa Rican cowboy himself, the centenarian from Nicoya, Dr. Damien Christoph. How are you, cowboy?
So good. That's the best one so far. How good was that cowboy in that episode? Can you believe he's 100 years old? Was he 190-something years old on that horse? And he rode it like he was 16 years old. Unbelievable. He could swing his leg over. Jeepers.
Yeah, I just wish I could recall his name. I'm being silly and trying to do two things at once, which I'll stop doing. But this episode is around Costa Rica, more specifically the Nicoya Peninsula, which is the 4th Blue Zone featured, or was it the 5th? I think it was the final Blue Zone featured. We discussed Icaria last week. Before that, we spoke about Sardinia and Loma Linda, and before that, Okinawa. So yes, Nicoya, Costa Rica, the final Blue Zone featured in Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones. This is our review. We're not finished yet. There will be another episode after this because we've got Singapore and the future of Blue Zones to discuss. But Damo,
yes,
you've got some big views on all of this. I know you're ready to tee off. The stage is yours. The mic is yours. I'll go on mute and I'll give you this entire episode if you want it. Over to you, great man.
No, you don't need to do that, PC, but there was a few little things in this particular episode that got my goat. The first thing was very, very clear that in Costa Rica, it was very primitive, and the way in which they managed to survive was through Struggle Town. You know, they'd worked really hard, they tended the land, they made do with what they had, and there was never any thought given to an expiry date. They just had to keep on going. It was just the way that they had to do it. Fortunately, and science has gone on to prove that they did make a good decision here, they blended their carbohydrates in order to get the full range of macronutrients. So they used beans and corn, and one of the jokes that I often talk about, you know, whether it's a joke or tongue-in-cheek or whatever, I talk about most people's digestion hasn't evolved to be able to break down the starch of the corn to be able to absorb the nutrition from the corn that's of any kind of benefit. So the way in which they do it in Costa Rica was to really break it down and to soak it and to almost have it partially digested to get in there. So unless you're going to do that, you're probably not going to receive much benefit from the corn. You know what I mean? So unless you're going to prepare the corn in the same way that the Costa Ricans do, and then you have the black beans and so on and so forth in the same way that they have it, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get the nutrient balance that was purported to be achieved by the combination of those foods. So I felt that in this particular episode, the nutrition explanation fell short just because the ingredients were there. You were led to believe that you could just have those ingredients together and you'd get a result. But that won't happen because you have to prepare the corn in a particular way to break down the cellulose structure in order to access the nutrition, the amino acids of the corn to get the benefit from it. So I just want you to keep that in mind.
Oh, okay. So we've got to dig a bit deeper in this because I had a neighbour say to me this morning, I watched Secrets of the Blue Zones and I thought of you, Marcus, and I went, and bought a bag of nuts last night, and I was like, because we get excited, right? We love this. Now, I will admit, I drank the Kool-Aid when I saw this episode, and it spoke about how the way that the beans in the corn are prepared, and it fills in the 9 missing amino acids that we don't get, when we don't have the animal animal protein and so on. I was like, okay, well, they've worked this out. What completely, and again, as the consumer, and this is what I really want to double down on, as the consumer, I did not connect it to the very fact that it was the way that they prepared it. I just connected it to the fact that they combined it. So can you go into more detail here? Because if people are like me, I was like, oh, great. So they've combined it. So they're sorted. Can you just double down on this? Because this is not as simple as going down to the health food store, supermarket, farmer's market, or whatever, and just getting set ingredients.
Yeah. Let's start by saying that they're probably not using Monsanto corn. Like, they're not using the corn that's GM. There's no doubt that they're using a high quality corn. So it's also possible that they're not using just yellow corn, but for the sake of the TV show, it was yellow corn. They could be using blue corn or whatever corn it is that they're growing. And so there's that. The other thing is too that in the lands that the corn is grown, it's not over sowed, and there's not a huge industry growing the corn, so the nutrient levels in the soil will be way better than nutrient levels in the soil of the corn crops that we probably get our corn from here in Australia, New Zealand, England, the US. Like, it's very different. Like, it's a different landscape, and they're not going to have glyphosate sprayed all over it like we do in Australia and in the Western world, where we grow corn as a crop to feed the chickens and to feed the cattle to make them fat so that we can feed the masses. It's different corn. The other thing is that the way in which they prepared it was that they cooked it for a long time. Like, it was cooked for a long time and made into a mush, and then it was milled and it was broken down. It was, you could say, partially digested. And that meant that the little corn fibers, the cellulose structure of the corn, was largely already broken down before it entered the human body, which means that there's more chance of you accessing the nutrition from the cellulose structure, the corn itself, rather than just the mushy, soft, sweet stuff that's on the inside, which is the carbohydrate dense component of it. Which is going to, sit on your bum or your waist or your thighs or your hips or your boobs. So, like, we're talking about that excessive carbohydrate that we get access to from the corn because we don't prepare it in the way that's required in order to get access to the nutrition that you would get access to if you did it right. So, it's not just the pairing of it, it's the preparation of it. Now, we can talk about, and I used to often say this, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian and you're wanting to get adequate amounts of protein, then you're combining grains and legumes to get the right amount of amino acid. But I've never recommended corn from a nutrition perspective as a great way to sub in a grain. I've always said use brown rice, or quinoa. But again, the preparation of this is really important. So you've got to soak it. You've got to make sure that it's, soggy and then cooked appropriately and not cooked too much and not too little. So there's a process. And then with your legumes, you've got to soak them. You can't just rip them out of a tin. Like, you've got to use the dried version, soak it for a day or two. Then you've got to cook it really slowly, break it down, let the nutrition fall apart to come out of it, which basically means that there's not a lot of vitamin left in the nutrition. It's minerals that are in the nutrition. So you've got to access your vitamins from fresh produce. You can't just have cooked grains and cooked legumes and expect to be doing really well, because the bulk of the nutrition is going to come from the fresh stuff.
And like you said, the soil that it's coming from is far likely to be more depleted where we're accessing it rather than where they're accessing it. Yeah. And this is where the nuance, it's difficult to create this nuance in a visual form, like in a series that goes for 2 hours over 4 episodes. This is, like what you're saying, is the danger of any media, whether it's a podcast like ours, whether it's a magazine article, a blog, or a series. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
It's not as easy.
So I know I'm poking holes. No, but
this is the important stuff. This is why I think these conversations that we're having are important, because it's not the intention. We're not, and this is really important. Dan Buettner or Netflix are not intending to oversimplify nutrition.
No.
What they are doing is still wanting to edutain the masses, but there has to be, it's like playing grown-ups. We have to be mindful that it's not just, they said that, so we go do that. Yeah. It's actually a bit more complicated than just combining corn and beans and thinking, I'm saved. Like, that's just way too, what's the word? Simple.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's exactly right. So the other thing that really got my goat was the mum, and you would know exactly where I'm going with this. The mum saying that her little boy doesn't like to eat the traditional foods. He likes to eat things out of a packet. Now, this kid would have been I don't know, was he no more than 2 years old, 18 months old?
This had a bit of TV producer all over it here.
Let me tell you something. I nearly picked up my 80-inch television off the wall and threw it out the window. But I was sitting on a plane watching it on my iPhone. But I was so angry because I was like, if you can see it and it's in front of you and you've learned it, like it's something that you've been taught, it's a secret of the generations. It's one of the most amazing things about survival and longevity in an environment that's incredibly challenging and hard. Like if you've learnt a way to prepare food and you grew up with it, why wouldn't you want to give that to your children? Why would you want to buy from a shop rubbish cack that's in a plastic bag when you've got access to beautifully prepared foods? Now, they did do a little run through with their camera through the supermarket, and I think the point that they were trying to highlight was that the next generation is not going to achieve longevity because they're making the easy, simple choices for the processed, manufactured foods that are in the supermarket and on the supermarket shelves. And I was a little bit sad and disappointed in that commentary, and maybe it's producer value there. Maybe it was the producer saying, "Hey, can you just say this, mate?" Because I know that's what they do in television.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. That's what I was saying. It's let's create this environment.
But I tell you, it's not far from the truth. When you've got 70-something% of the population in Australia that are overweight or obese, even though our statistics are incredibly high for the amount of people that make it to 100 in Australia, the quality of life is not always there. And so that comes down to the way in which we hack our life to the end. If we're hacking it by not preparing and we're buying processed foods and we're buying fizzy drinks and we're using heaps of sugar and we're cooking with hydrogenated vegetable oils and we're doing all that sort of stuff to simplify things, we're missing the point. And you'll notice that in the preparation of all of the food throughout the whole of the show, no one was cooking on a fast fry, rapid cook, super high heat.
Didn't see an air fryer, Damo.
No air fryers, no microwaves. It was all done on a moderate heat that was that enabled the food to cook at a good pace, not at a rapid pace. So there was a few little things in there I think we could have explored more, and I'm glad that we're doing this little summary so we can share that stuff.
Oh, so much to say here. So much to say. And I love listening to you. I love it. I love it when you're like, got to be in your bonnet. I just love it. And I reckon everyone listening is going to love this as well, because this gets to the heart of the matter, is what does the future look like? And I think you and I, Damo, I want to say we're raging optimists, but also not out of ignorance.
No.
Like, we like to think that the next generation, you've got a beautiful young man who's your son, who I think is 23.
Yes.
And he is an incredible man. And you look at someone like Jackson and go, there's the future right there. We're in a good place.
Yeah.
Now, do we choose to look at Jackson, or do we choose to look at, 4 other 23-year-olds that are not in a great place? And do we go, well, that's the future? I think the question that we all have to ask ourselves is, what future are we creating? And I talk to clients who are grandparents saying your life has never been more important than it is now, because you are showing your grandchildren how to live. And it's also, like you said, parents who might be in their 30s or 40s, as much as it might be young adults in their early 20s. The question is, and we had this come up in Icaria when Yanni was telling us about, young kids who are on mobile phones, like they're all distracted, or the easy access to processed foods and so on. It's not so much about, oh my gosh, these kids are in trouble and they're in a world of hurt. It's more, to your point, what is the example that they are being shown here, and who is actually going, no, you won't eat that food. Like, that's not how we do it in our family or our culture, or this is the way that we choose to live. Yes, we know there are people down there that are going to eat McDonald's and all the rest of it, but we're going to do it differently. And this is the challenge on a macro level that Okinawa is experiencing, which I think came up in episode 4, is that all of the centenarians' kids and grandkids are all sick and dying. They're the ones that are diabetes and cancer and overweight and obese, going to the Maccas and the KFC because they have refused to honour their tradition and, for want of a better term, to take it even more widely, their culture. And I don't choose to live in that world of going, oh, well, we're all screwed then. I more feel like the more people that are inspired by what they see on the series and hopefully by the work that you and I do, they go, no, I'm going to live this lifestyle and I'm going to be the one whose life my family and friends, look at, and I'm going to be a mentor to the people around me. And that's the way to make humanity age gracefully, not to, point to everyone that's doing it poorly. Because I think, when I saw that, I was like, what does that achieve for the viewer? It felt very disempowering for the viewer. It's like, so we're pretty much screwed then.
We're stuffed.
we're stuffed. I'm like, no, that's just one lens.
Yeah. We can still do it really well. Pete asked a question going back to air fryers. He says, oh no, is there something wrong with air fryers? And it's not necessarily that things are wrong with air fryers. It's the speed at which it encourages us to cook, I think, which is, like, from a philosophical perspective, challenges me. Also, it means that because you're cooking at such a high temperature, you definitely run the risk of running down the nutrient value of the food. Even though it's not as hot as, say, oil is, it's just still really, really hot. And I'll just say that we don't need to have all our food cooked at that heat. That's all it is, Pete. So still eating lots of fresh stuff. And then I suppose if you're going to do some frying, then air frying is probably better than cooking with canola oil. No doubt about it. And I'd also say that it's probably better than heating other oils such as olive oil or even coconut oil at that high temperature. Like, if you've got to achieve a fry, it's a healthier way to achieve a fry than by using oil at 200 plus degrees. You just don't want to do that. So, that's where I'd go with that. When we talk about future pacing of future generations and all that sort of stuff, obviously there's going to be changes to the food supply, and obviously there's going to be alterations to the way in which we cook and new methods and all that sort of stuff. But the wisdom of the ages would say to us that the fresher the food that we eat, the better. And the least processed the food that we eat, the better. And the slower we cook the food that we eat, the better. And so there's a few little things that we can take away from each of these cultures that are doing a really good job at it. Hydration, clearly that's important. So water. In terms of social lubrication, moderate amounts of alcohol appear to be fine, which is really good. And we're just talking about the nutrition component here. But let's just remember that when we look at the big wheel that Dan and Netflix put up as to all of the secrets of longevity, the secrets to living to 100, food was one part of many different things that made this wheel of success. And so don't just pin all your hopes of longevity on the nutrition that you eat. You've still got to be social. You've still got to be engaged. You've still got to be purposeful. You've still got to move. You've still got to have a faith, a belief in something bigger. You've still got to be, what else was there, Piercy?
Well, the thing is that I've written down that you said earlier, you still have to struggle. You have to create more struggle in your life, because when you create struggle, I've just been thinking about this as you talk, we need help, which means we need community. We need people around us. So whether it's you're having trouble cutting the onions, whether it is that you're having trouble accessing some food, whether it is that you're having trouble getting somewhere, whatever it is, like these cultures, and we always remember this from our chat with Eo in Sardinia, the reason why they're nose to tail is because they were a subsistence lifestyle. It was born out of struggle. It's the same with so many of these cultures. It is born out of struggle. And sometimes I think the only way to say it is we all need to make our lives a little bit harder. And a little bit easier, a little bit harder. It sounds counterintuitive, but like walking to work instead of driving, taking the stairs instead of the lift, walking down to the shops to buy a bottle of wine rather than driving down there. Like they're just seem little and inconvenient, but you look at the way that the Blue Zone cultures do it, their lives are not easy. And we are almost addicted to ease. And so I feel like that's just, as you're talking, I'm like, that just for me just feels like such a big thing.
Yeah, totally. We don't definitely. I mean, obviously, life will get easier. There's no doubt about it, and you don't have to make your life so hard that you're punished. But
Yeah, you have to live under the ground in a cave, no electricity, off grid, grow everything from scratch, and not have any source.
yeah, but we're very blessed, So it potentially means that we can get a whole lot more out of our life, because we're not spending 6 or 8 hours farming the land. But they farm the land because they want to get access to great quality produce. So if you're going to do 6 to 7 hours of something else in the day, then just make sure you continue to get access to great quality produce. If you're going to maintain connection with people, and it's easier to get to them, still spend the right amount of time to go and connect with them rather than trying to fit in an extra hour's worth of work because you know that you can drive there. Still find a way to go and have adequate amounts of connection with people. That's really important. Having fun and laughing and telling jokes and being close to your family and all of these other little secrets that come from that wheel that Dan, pulled together. The thing, was really interesting today. We were playing and DJ said to me, he said, did you like the series? And I said, Deej, I loved the series. I loved the series because what it did is it highlighted so much more of the longevity story, the longevity piece, than just the nutrition piece. And so I think, if there's a message that comes through in what we've spoken about in the first 4 parts of our little summary of Dan Buettner's Live to 100, is that there's a lot more to longevity than just nutrition.
Oh, this has been such a good conversation, Damo. I'm really grateful that you had the courage to bring up the tough stuff. I do think this conversation about the future, it's a mature one, and I really love the conversation around amino acids and food combining and all of those things because I love that you added the nuance to it that, again, difficult to do in an entertainment medium space, but I love the fact that we could have this conversation and you could bring that knowledge to the fore. We are going to leave it there on this episode. On the next episode, Damo, do you think it will be our last episode review? I think that will make it a 5-part review of a 4-part series. Do you think we've got one more?
I think so. We'll do one more ep talking about that, but talking about Singapore because there's some really amazing things about Singapore. And I was only there last week or the week before, so I've got a perspective on it. Obviously, my son lives in Singapore now, so I've got a even broader lens on what Singapore has to offer, and I loved what they spoke about. And we might even bring in a little bit of the Finnish government in what they have tried to achieve with developing blue zones, given our interaction with the Finnish authorities in Ikaria some years ago now.
And I will say, a lot of people are like, when are you going to interview Dan Buettner? I'm going to put my hand up and go, I haven't tried that hard because of the time zones, and I can't be bothered doing interviews at 5:30 in the morning, which is probably going to be when Damo and I are going to have to rise and shine to do it. But I think this series may be the tipping point.
Yeah.
We have had some social media interaction over the years. Thea and Dan are very good friends, so I will work harder. On behalf of our listeners, I, hand on heart, will work harder at organising that interview and make it happen. And we'll make it a double episode, and we'll ask all the big questions because I know that this series has really unlocked some curiosity for people, and it's about time, Damo. 550 million episodes in, it's about time.
Yeah, it is about time. And won't it be a joy to get Dan on? Yeah, I think it'd be great. Jerry Seinfeld lookalike, Dan Buettner.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, folks, and you'd like to do it around a dining table in Ikaria and or Sardinia, we're off to Ikaria August 22 to 31 in 2024, and then the day after we fly to Rome and to Sardinia September 1 to 10, 2024. You can join us for either 10 days or 20 days, depending on how crazy you are. All the details and to set up a call with myself are at 100notout.com. You'll see a page there for Ikaria, a page there for Sardinia. Damo, for your wisdom, thank you so much. And to every one of you that has been watching and listening, may the rest of your life continue to be the best of your life.
Bye for now.
Boom, 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 boom.
Thank you, Facebook, for sticking around, for all those people that watch this live. Pete, I don't know when we're going to Costa Rica. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but we may. but it's not on the card at this point in time. Definitely Sardinia, want to tick that one off. And
we just love Europe. We love Europe. We're not
Yeah.
well, I'm not that attracted to going to Okinawa. I think I would be a little bit confronting into, you've got to go with Okinawa, you've got to go to the arse end of Okinawa to find this tiny little pocket where they're still doing it well. In Ikaria, the whole island is the blue zone.
Yeah.
In Sardinia, it's only a small part, but you've kind of got a lot of beautiful mod cons and almost like you've got villages that are still very, blue zoney.
Yeah. Like Calzone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone says Nicoya is gorgeous and divine.
Yeah.
So not disputing that. But I
think we could do it. We might consider it. But I think at this point...
like a 2030.
Yeah, it's going to be a few years away. And particularly with Piercy, still breeding, there's lots of children hanging around. It's really difficult to get away.
Still breeding. Just still raising kids. No more breeding.
You might still breed, who knows. But with Piercy having such a busy family life, it's difficult to spend that much time away. So we'd have to cut out Sardinia, which I think has got legs. I think Sardinia's probably... It's one of the greatest places on earth, and there's no doubt about it. And Ikaria, we just never want to leave because we just love it so much there. So we'd have to tack on a third one, which would be either Okinawa or Costa Rica. And it's just the logistics. So we'll work it out, Pete. It's unlikely to be before 2030.
Interesting, though, isn't it? Interesting.
How many episodes will we be up to if we get to 2030? It's 2023
add another
now.
100. We'll be past 700.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Be like 800.
I know there's podcasts out there that are up to episode 2000, but they release an episode every 2 days.
That's right.
Yeah.
But dude,
yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Franchise 100 not out. Pete reckons.
100 not out.
Talk about stress. My gosh.
Gee whiz.
Who wants to be that stressed?
Entrepreneurial. Yeah. That's an entrepreneurial seizure you had there, Pete. Or just.
That reminds me of my epileptic goldfish. It's unbelievable.
All right, let's wrap up this Facebook.
All right.
Thanks, Damo.
I'm going to push buy now. See you later, everybody.
Facebook.
Catch you.